I'm Zinnia Caldwell, 32 years old, and I thought I'd finally made it. As Seattle's newest marketing director, I stood in my downtown condo, staring at the Puget Sound, believing I'd earned my family's respect. But they had other plans. "You're not worth celebrating," my mother snapped when I invited them to my promotion party. 30 relatives promised to come. Not one showed. They all flocked to my sister Laurel's last-minute gala instead, leaving my carefully planned night empty. Then, my grandfather did something unthinkable. He handed me a $5 million inheritance and cut every single one of them out of his will. Now they're begging for my help, and I'm raising the stakes. Why did they betray me? What drove my grandfather's shocking decision? Stick around, because this story of loyalty, lies, and redemption will leave you speechless. My life looked perfect from the outside. I'd clawed my way to the top of a cutthroat marketing firm in Seattle, securing a corner office with a view of the Space Needle. My 6-figure salary bought me a sleek condo on the 20th floor, all glass and steel, with a balcony that caught the sunset's glow. At 32, I was living the dream most people chase their whole lives. But beneath the polished surface, a quiet ache lingered. My family, parents, sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, never saw me. Not really. Growing up in Tacoma, I was the shadow to my sister Laurel's spotlight. She was the golden child, charming and bold, while I was the quiet one, nose in a book, always planning, always working. My parents poured their praise, money, and time into Laurel's endless ventures, her art classes, her summer trips, her startup dreams. Me? I got hand-me-downs and lectures about being practical. When I landed my promotion, I thought, maybe now they'll see me. Maybe now I'll matter. So I planned a party to celebrate. Not just any party, a grand one. I called every relative, my voice brimming with excitement, inviting them to my condo. Aunt Marion promised to bring her famous lemon tarts. Uncle Theo swore he'd show with his kids. Even distant cousins I hadn't seen in years confirmed, their voices warm with enthusiasm. 30 people said yes. I was thrilled, like a kid counting down to Christmas. But the night of the party, my condo stayed silent. No doorbell, no laughter, just the hum of the city below. By 6 p.m., panic crept in. I called my mother. Her voice was cold, dismissive. "Zinnia, we're busy. Laurel's throwing a gala. You should have known." My heart sank. A gala? She hadn't mentioned it. None of them had. Then my phone lit up with a notification. Laurel's live video on Instagram. There they were, my entire family, laughing, clinking glasses at her waterfront mansion. Aunt Marion's tarts sat on her table. Uncle Theo's kids ran around her lawn. And in the background, my mother's voice, clear as day. "Zinnia's parties are so dull. Why bother?" I stood frozen, the catered food untouched, the decorations glittering in an empty room. Betrayal burned through me, sharp and relentless. But then, a knock at the door. My grandfather, Henry, stood there, his eyes heavy with understanding. What he did next changed everything. Don't miss what happens next, how one man's love rewrote my future and exposed my family's true colors. Hit that subscribe button for more stories like this, and let's dive into the storm that followed. You won't believe where this leads. The Seattle skyline glittered outside my condo window, a mosaic of steel and glass under a gray dawn. I just landed the biggest win of my career, marketing director at a top firm. But success, I learned early, doesn't fill the voids left by family. Growing up in Tacoma, I was the invisible daughter. My sister, Laurel, 2 years older, was the star. Charming, radiant, always the center of attention. Our parents hung on her every word, funding her whims, art camps, European gap years, a startup she swore would change the world. I got her old textbooks, her faded clothes, and a lecture to stop being so serious. I poured myself into work instead. Marketing was my escape, a world where strategy and grit mattered more than charisma. I climbed from intern to director in a decade. My campaign splashed across billboards and screens. When the board called me into their sleek office to announce my promotion, I felt a rush I'd never known. My new salary, well into 6 figures, meant I'd finally outrun the shadow of Laurel's spotlight. That night, alone in my condo, an idea sparked. I'd host a party to celebrate, not just for me, but to show my family who I'd become. Maybe, just maybe, they'd see me differently. I envisioned laughter, clinking glasses, a night to bridge the gap between us. I started calling relatives. Aunt Marianne's voice crackled with warmth when I invited her. "Zinnia, I'll be there with my tarts," she promised. Uncle Theo chuckled, saying his kids were already excited. Even cousins I hadn't seen in years, scattered across Washington, sounded thrilled. "Count us in," they said, one after another. 30 confirmed guests. My heart swelled picturing my condo alive with family, the Puget Sound glowing behind us. But doubt lingered. My family wasn't exactly close. Laurel's charm always outshone my quiet determination. At 16, when I won a national marketing contest, my parents barely nodded. They said, "Laurel's got a gallery showing," and rushing off to her event. When I asked for a $2,000 coding boot camp, they scoffed. "Focus on school," they said. Meanwhile, Laurel's $20,000 startup pitch got a check without question. Still, I pushed the doubts aside. This party was my chance to rewrite the story. I ordered catering from a top restaurant, roasted lamb, truffle risotto, berry tarts with gold-dusted cream. I hired decorators to transform my condo into a wonderland. String lights, a towering spruce draped in silver, candles flickering like stars. For the kids, I bought gifts, books, puzzles, plush toys, each chosen with care. The budget climbed to $5,000. I hesitated, staring at the numbers. But this wasn't just a party. It was a statement. I wanted them to see I'd built something real, that I wasn't the overlooked kid anymore. I wanted them to be proud. The calls to my parents and Laurel were harder. Mom's voice was clipped. "Your place? Sounds cramped," she said. Dad grunted. "Why not Laurel's mansion?" Laurel laughed when I invited her. "Zinnia, you sure you can pull this off?" Her doubt stung, but I pressed on, telling myself their presence would change everything. I saved my grandfather, Henry, for last. He was different, always had been. When I was 10 and my parents skipped my science fair for Laurel's dance recital, Henry was there, clapping loudest when I won first place. He'd slip me books on advertising, whispering, "You're going to run the world, kid." I planned to visit him in person, to share the news of my promotion face to face. As I finalized the guest list, my condo felt alive with possibility. I stood on the balcony, the city humming below, and let myself believe this party could heal old wounds. I was wrong. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew. Stay with me. This story of betrayal and unexpected allies will grip you. Subscribe for more tales like this, and let's uncover the truth together. The clock on my condo wall ticked past 5 p.m. My carefully set table, laden with roasted lamb, truffle risotto, and gold-dusted tarts, sat untouched. The spruce in the corner glowed with silver ornaments, but the silence was deafening. I paced the living room, checking my phone. No texts, no calls. The party was supposed to start an hour ago. My stomach nodded, but I told myself they were just late. Seattle traffic could be brutal. I dialed Aunt Mary Ann. Her phone rang 5 times before she picked up. Her voice rushed. "Zinnia, I'm stuck on I-5. Be there soon." She hung up before I could respond. Next, I called Uncle Theo. He sounded distracted, kids shouting in the background. "We're on our way, maybe 10 minutes out." He clicked off. I exhaled, trying to calm the rising unease. They'd come. They had to. By 6 p.m., the condo was still empty. The candles flickered their glow, mocking my hope. I called my mother, my fingers trembling. Her tone was ice cold, sharp enough to cut. "Zinnia, we're at Laurel's. She's throwing a gala. You didn't really expect us to come to your little thing, did you?" My breath caught. "What gala?" I asked, voice shaking. She sighed, impatient. "Laurel's launching her new startup pitch. It's a big deal. You wouldn't understand." Then she added, her words like a slap, "Your parties are always so dull. Why bother?" She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone, the screen blurring. A notification pinged. Laurel's Instagram. I opened it, and there it was, a live video from her waterfront mansion. My family filled the frame, laughing under chandeliers. Aunt Marianne's tarts sat on a marble counter. Uncle Theo's kids danced with sparklers. My cousins clinked champagne glasses, their smiles wide. Then, Laurel's voice, loud and mocking, cut through. "Zinnia thinks she's a big shot now, but who'd show up to her boring party?" The phone slipped from my hand. My chest tightened, rage and heartbreak colliding. They hadn't just ditched me. They lied, planned it, mocked me. I scrolled through the comments. "Where's Zinnia?" someone asked. Laurel's reply, "Probably sulking alone." Laughter emojis followed. I sank onto the sofa, the city's lights blurring beyond the glass. Every call, every promise, they'd played me. I'd spent $5,000, poured my heart into this night, and they'd chosen Laurel's glitz over me. Again. Then my phone rang, jarring me. Grandpa Henry's name flashed on the screen. I answered, my voice barely a whisper. "Zinnia," he said, his tone puzzled. "Where are you? The party's at Laurel's, isn't it?" I froze. "What? No, it's here. I never said—" He cut in, his voice tightening. "Your mother told everyone you canceled and moved it to Laurel's. I'm outside your building now." The truth hit like a freight train. They hadn't just forgotten. They'd orchestrated this, lied to my grandfather, to everyone, to ensure I'd be alone. I told him I was home, waiting, and he said, "Stay there. I'm coming up." I hung up, my hands shaking with fury. The betrayal wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate, a calculated move to erase me. I waited for the urge to call them, to scream, to demand answers. It didn't come. Instead, a cold clarity settled over me, sharp as a blade. I wasn't their doormat anymore. I'd spent years chasing their approval, and now I was done. For the first time, I felt untethered. What my grandfather did next changed everything. This storm was just beginning, and the fallout would shake us all. The knock on my condo door sliced through the silence like a lifeline. I opened it, and there stood Grandpa Henry, his silver hair catching the hallway light. His eyes, sharp yet kind, held a weight that told me he'd seen this betrayal coming. In his hands was a small velvet box tied with a simple ribbon. My heart, still raw from the family's lies, stuttered at the sight of him. For the first time that night, I wasn't alone. I ushered him inside, my voice catching. The living room glowed with string lights. The catered spread, roasted lamb, truffle risotto, berry tarts, sat untouched on the dining table. Henry's gaze swept over the empty space, and I saw a flicker of sorrow cross his face. He didn't speak. He just rested a hand on my shoulder, steady and warm, like an anchor in a storm. We sat on the leather sofa, the city's skyline glittering beyond the glass. I poured out everything, the fake calls, Laurel's mucking video, my mother's cruel words. My voice shook, anger and hurt spilling over. Henry listened, his face calm, but his eyes alive with something fierce, something protective. When I finished, he leaned forward, his voice low and deliberate. Zinnia, I've watched this family for decades. I've seen their greed, their favoritism. You've always been the one who showed up, who worked, who cared. He paused, his gaze locking with mine. They don't deserve you. He slid the velvet box toward me. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a check, made out to Henry Caldwell, for $1 million. I stared at the numbers, my breath catching. "Grandpa, this is too much," I whispered. He shook his head, his voice firm but warm. "It's not about the money. It's about what you've endured. I've seen every slight, every time they pushed you aside for Laurel. This is yours because you've earned it, not just tonight, but your whole life." His words hit like a wave, soothing the ache I'd carried for years. I wanted to cry, to hug him, to thank him 1,000 times, but I just sat there, clutching the check, feeling seen for the first time. Then a thought struck me. The food, the gifts, boxes of books, puzzles, and stuffed animals for the kids, none of it should go to waste. "Grandpa," I said, my voice steadier now, "let's do something with this. Let's give it to people who need it." His eyes lit up, a spark of pride in them. We called my friend Mara, who ran a women's shelter downtown. She was there in 20 minutes, her van parked outside. Together, we loaded trays of lamb, risotto, and tarts, along with the gifts, into the back. Henry insisted on coming along, his energy defying his 82 years. At the shelter, under the dim glow of streetlights, women and children gathered. Their faces, worn by hardship, softened as we handed out warm plates and brightly wrapped packages. A young girl, maybe 7, hugged a stuffed rabbit, her smile brighter than any chandelier at Laurel's Gala. A mother, her eyes tired but grateful, clasped my hand. "This means everything," she said. Henry stood beside me, watching quietly. I caught his eye and he nodded, as if to say, "This is who you are." I waited for the bitterness to claw at me, for the urge to dwell on my family's betrayal. It didn't come. Instead, a quiet strength rose within me, clear and unshakable. I'd spent years trying to win their love, but here, giving to strangers, I felt whole. For the first time, I was enough. The night wasn't over, and Henry's next move would turn my world upside down. The storm was far from finished. The days after the party felt like a fog, thick with betrayal's aftertaste. I went through the motions at work, my corner office overlooking the Space Needle, now a hollow trophy. My family's silence was louder than any apology they never offered. Grandpa Henry called me a week later, his voice steady but urgent. "Zinnia, come to my house in Bellevue tomorrow. I've called a family meeting. Be there." I didn't ask questions. His tone told me something big was coming. I arrived at his cedar-shingled home, nestled among evergreens, to find cars lining the driveway. Inside, the living room was packed. My parents, Laurel, Aunt Marianne, Uncle Theo, cousins, all seated, faces tight with unease. Laurel lounged on a couch, her confidence unshaken, as if she owned the room. My mother's eyes darted to me, sharp with something I couldn't name.
Henry stood at the head of the room, beside a man in a crisp navy suit. "This is Paul, my attorney," Henry said, his voice cutting through the tension. Paul opened a sleek briefcase, pulling out a thick folder. A video camera hummed in the corner, recording every word. Henry's gaze swept the room, his expression harder than I'd ever seen. He said, "I'm announcing the distribution of my estate today. My vineyard in Walla Walla, my tech stock portfolio, and my liquid assets, totaling $5 million, go to Zinnia. All of it." The room erupted. Uncle Theo leapt up, his face red. "This is outrageous, Henry. What about us?" Aunt Marianne's voice cracked. "Zinnia? She's done nothing for this family." Laurel shot to her feet, her charm replaced with venom. "You're giving it all to her? She manipulated you." My mother's voice cut through, icy and accusing. "Zinnia's always been selfish. She poisoned you against us." My father joined in, his tone bitter. "You're making a mistake, Dad. Laurel's the one with vision." I sat frozen, the weight of Henry's decision sinking in. $5 million, a vineyard, stocks. It was beyond anything I'd imagined. But their accusations stung, each word a fresh wound. They didn't just want the money, they wanted to erase me, to rewrite me as the villain. Henry raised a hand, silencing the chaos. His voice was steel. "I planned to split it evenly years ago, but I've watched you all. You praised Laurel, through her galas, funded her schemes. You lied to Zinnia, left her alone, mocked her work. You chose greed over family." He turned to Laurel, his eyes narrowing. "You promised them a fortune with your startup, didn't you? Where's their money now?" Laurel's face paled, her confidence crumbling. Aunt Marianne gasped, clutching Uncle Theo's arm. Henry nodded to Paul, who began documenting the terms. "The vineyard, the stocks, the cash. It's Zinnia's. After I'm gone, the Bellevue house goes to her, too." The camera's red light blinked, sealing his words. My cousins shouted, their voices overlapping, "This is unfair! She doesn't deserve it!" Laurel's eyes burned into me, her lips curling. "You'll regret this, Zinnia." My parents stood, faces twisted with rage, and stormed out, followed by the others. The room emptied, their footsteps echoing like a retreating army. Henry and I sat alone, the silence heavy. I waited for guilt, for the instinct to chase them, to fix their anger. It never came. Instead, a fierce resolve bloomed inside me, bright and unyielding. I'd carried their expectations, their dismissals, for too long. Now, I held something they couldn't touch. For the first time, I felt unstoppable. The weeks after Grandpa Henry's announcement felt like a ceasefire, brittle and uneasy. My phone stayed quiet. No apologies, no outreach. I buried myself in work, my marketing campaigns sharper than ever, but the sting of betrayal lingered like a bruise. Then the call started. Aunt Marianne was first, showing up at my condo unannounced. Her eyes were red, her voice trembling. "Zinnia, we're in trouble," she said, clutching her purse. "Laurel's startup. We invested $200,000. It's gone. Can you help?" I stared, my coffee cup frozen mid-sip. "What startup?" I asked. She stammered, explaining Laurel's pitch, a tech app promising 300% returns. She'd convinced 4 family branches to pour in $2 million total, using her charm and fabricated success stories. Now, the app's website was offline, Laurel's phone disconnected. Next came Uncle Theo, his usual bluster gone. He sat in my living room, head bowed. "My son's college fund, $50,000. Laurel swore it was a sure thing. We're broke, Zinnia." His voice cracked, but his eyes flicked to me, expectant. "You got $5 million. Can't you spare something?" One by one, cousins appeared, a leaking roof, a car repair. Each story sounded urgent, each plea tied to Laurel's scam. I listened, my face calm, but inside, anger simmered. They hadn't cared when they mocked me at Laurel's Gala. Now they saw me as a bank. The worst were my parents. My mother called daily, her tone unnervingly sweet. "Zinnia, how's work? Are you eating well?" My father invited me to dinner, his voice warm. "We're family. Let's move past this." But their words felt rehearsed, like a script to pry open my wallet. I hired a private investigator on a hunch. 2 days later, he sent me a report. Laurel's startup was a shell. Its funds funneled to offshore accounts. She doctored financials, lied about partnerships, and vanished with $2 million. My family, blinded by her charm, hadn't questioned a thing. When Aunt Marianne returned, begging for $100,000 to save her house, I asked, "Why not go to Laurel?" She flinched. "She's gone. No one can find her." I leaned back, my voice steady. "I'm not responsible for her mess, or yours." Uncle Theo tried guilt next, his voice low. "You've got Henry's money. You owe us. We're family." I laughed, cold and sharp. "Family? Where were you when I stood alone in my condo?" He had no answer, just a defeated slump. My parents were bolder. My mother called, her sweetness gone. "We need $400,000. The bank's taking our house. Laurel took our savings for her app." I pressed for details. They'd handed her $400,000. No contract, no proof. I shook my head, incredulous. "I'm not bailing you out," I said. Their tone shifted to anger. "You're selfish," my mother snapped. "Henry gave you everything. You owe us." I hung up, my pulse steady.
They thought they could guilt me, but I saw through their game. I waited for regret, for the pull to fix their problems. It didn't come. Instead, a fierce clarity surged through me, bright as a flame. I'd spent years begging for their love, but their greed had freed me. I wasn't their savior. I was my own. For the first time, I stood tall. The relentless pleas from my family gnawed at me, each call and visit a fresh attempt to crack my resolve. My condo, once a sanctuary, felt like a stage for their desperation. I couldn't live like this, constantly bracing for the next knock, the next guilt trip. I made a decision. I sold my condo for $850,000, a tidy profit from my original purchase. With Grandpa Henry's $1 million check and my savings, I bought a penthouse in a high-rise on Seattle waterfront. The new place was a fortress, 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of Puget Sound that shimmered at dawn. Key card entry, round-the-clock security, and cameras ensured no uninvited guests. Moving day was crisp, the air sharp with autumn. I stood on the penthouse balcony, watching ferries glide across the water. The space felt like mine, untouched by the chaos I'd left behind. I changed my phone number, updated my email, and deleted my social media. Every tie to my family, every thread that could pull me back, was cut. My parents didn't stop. A week after the move, my mother's new number appeared on my office line. Her voice was soft, calculated. "Zinnia, we're losing the house. Laurel's scam took everything, $400,000. The bank's foreclosing." I stayed silent, letting her words hang. She pushed harder. "You've got Henry's money. Help us. We're your parents." I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm but firm. "I'll buy the house. $600,000. Cash." She gasped, then hesitated. "That's fair," she said, but added, "We'd need to stay. It's our home." I almost laughed. They wanted the money and the house, as if I'd hand them both. "You can stay," I said, pausing for effect. "Rent's $4,000 a month." Her tone sharpened. $4,000? Zinnia, that's absurd! It's business, I replied, my voice steady. "Last week, I offered $650,000. You waited. Now it's $600,000. Call again, and it drops to $550,000. She hung up, her silence louder than words. I knew they'd call back. 2 days later, my father's voice came through, subdued. "We'll take the $600,000. We'll move out once the paperwork's done." "Deal," I said, my pulse even. The house was a steal, worth $800,000 on the market. My attorney Rachel handled the transfer, ensuring every detail was ironclad. My parents began packing, their pride swallowed by necessity. I drove to Grandpa Henry's Bellevue home to share the news. He sat on his porch, sipping coffee, the evergreens swaying behind him. I told him about the house, the negotiations, the clean break. His eyes twinkled with pride. "You're learning, Zinnia," he said.
"You're not just surviving, you're building." We talked for hours, the afternoon light fading. He asked about my plans for the vineyard and stocks. I admitted I hadn't thought that far. "Let's figure it out together," he said, his voice warm but serious. We sketched out ideas, leasing the vineyard to a local winery, reinvesting the stock dividends. He suggested a mentorship program for young women in marketing, something to give back. I loved it. The next week, I met with a financial advisor. The vineyard's lease would bring steady income, and the stocks, tech giants like Amazon and Microsoft, were projected to grow. I set aside funds for the mentorship program, naming it after Henry. It would offer scholarships, workshops, and internships for women like me, who'd had to claw their way up. But the family wasn't done. Aunt Marianne and Uncle Theo cornered me at my office one morning, their faces drawn. "Zinnia," Marianne said, her voice pleading, "we're losing our home. Laurel's app scam, it wiped us out. You've got the money. Please." I leaned forward, my tone cold. "You chose Laurel. You lied to me, mocked me. Why should I fix your mistake?" Theo's face hardened. "Henry gave you everything. You owe us." "I owe you nothing," I said, standing. "Get out or I call security." They left, their footsteps heavy, their anger useless. Laurel's downfall surfaced in a news alert. My investigator's report had reached the police. She'd been tracked to a condo in Vancouver, arrested for fraud. Aunt Marianne and Uncle Theo had filed charges, their $2 million loss fueling their betrayal. I felt no pity. Laurel had built her empire on lies, and now it was crumbling. I visited Henry again, sharing the update. He nodded, unsurprised. He made her choices. So did they. So have you. His words settled over me, a quiet affirmation. The penthouse became my haven. I'd wake to the sound of waves, work on campaigns that lit up Seattle's billboards, and spend weekends with Henry, planning the mentorship program. The family's calls stopped. The silence was a gift, a space to breathe, to grow. I waited for the weight of their judgment, for the old urge to please them. It never came. Instead, a fierce joy surged through me, bright as the sun on the sound. I'd carried their dismissals, their favoritism for too long. Now I was building a life on my terms, rooted in my own worth. For the first time, I was free. The paperwork for my parents' house closed on a rainy Seattle morning. My attorney, Rachel, sent me the final documents, confirming the $600,000 transfer. My parents moved into a modest apartment, their belongings packed in haste. I didn't visit. The house, now mine, stood empty, a symbol of boundaries set. Laurel's downfall made headlines. Arrested in Vancouver, she faced fraud charges for her $2 million tech app scam. Aunt Marianne and Uncle Theo, once her biggest cheerleaders, led the lawsuit against her. I read the news over coffee, my penthouse quiet, except for the soft patter of rain. I felt no satisfaction, only a calm detachment. Their choices had built their ruin. Grandpa Henry and I met weekly, our bond stronger than ever. We finalized plans for the Henry Caldwell Mentorship Program, funded by the vineyard's lease and stock dividends. It launched with 10 young women, each hungry to break into marketing. I mentored them myself, sharing strategies I'd honed over years. Their ambition mirrored mine, their gratitude a mirror to my younger self. Weekends at Henry's Bellevue porch became my refuge. We'd sip coffee, the evergreens swaying, and talk about life, his past, my future. At 82, his mind was sharp, his laughter warm. "You've built something real," he said once, his hand on mine. I smiled, my heart full. He'd given me more than money. He'd given me belief in myself. The vineyard thrived under its new lease, its wines winning awards. The stocks climbed, my financial advisor texting updates that made my head spin. But the real wealth was the peace I'd claimed. My penthouse, with its Puget Sound views, was a haven where I could breathe, create, live. Looking back, I saw the truth. My family's betrayal, their greed, had forced me to see my own strength. I'd spent years chasing their approval, dimming my light to fit their shadows. Now, I stood in my own. To anyone listening, here's what I've learned. Family isn't a debt you owe. Your worth isn't tied to their validation. Protect your time, your heart, your dreams. Those who love you lift you up, not pull you down. Let go of those who take without giving. Build a life that's yours, unapologetically. I waited for doubts, for the echo of their voices calling me selfish. They never came. Instead, a quiet certainty settled in me, warm as the sun breaking through clouds. I'd fought for my place, not just in the world, but within myself. For the first time, I was home. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Was I too harsh, or did I do what was right? Like and share this story if it moved you, and subscribe for more tales of courage and truth.